Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We apologize for the breaking content, but it feels good to be back, and it especially feels good to be back here at Gridiron headquarters. It was recently announced that there will be more bowl games coming for the 2019 and 2020 season, which got me thinking. With over 40 bowl games, including the college football playoff, who is the winningest program in postseason history? The answer may surprise you, as the number one team, the winningest program in postseason history, is the Marshall Thundering Herd, coming in with a 12-2 record and an 85.7% winning percentage. It should be noted that all teams on this list, this top 30 list, have been in at least 10 bowl games. The requirements for making this list have been to participate in at least 10 bowl games or more, and all of these teams met those requirements. The Thundering Herd come in with that 12-2 record. Right behind them, your first Power 5 team with Utah, finishing with a 17-5 record, 77.3% overall. Number 3, another major surprise here, San Jose State, meeting the requirement just barely. They participated in exactly 10 bowl games and went 7-3 in those bowl games in that program's history, so right at 70%. And of course, we'll break down all of these teams here in the top 30 and share some facts about this list here. It really was something that kind of caught my attention. As I said, we have over 40 bowl games, which means almost over half of the all FBS teams are going to be going bowling in 2019. Which is extremely hard to believe. We have seen instances where teams have gone with a 5-7 record. San Jose State is a perfect example of that. Their last bowl game was the 2015 Cure Bowl, where they went as a 5-7 team. And of course, in that game, they did beat the Georgia State Panthers to finish the season 6-7. So it is possible for teams to get in with a losing record, and we might even see more of that in 2019 and 2020 as we have so many bowl games and slots that need to be filled. Number 4, Wake Forest coming in at 9-4, 69.2%. And then Louisiana Tech rounding out the top 5 with a 7-3-1 record, 68.2%. And a handful of these teams do have ties in their records because over the course of their program's history, if you go way back into the early 1900s, or maybe 1950, 1960, they did have tie games back in those days. So it is extremely possible for many teams to have that. Alabama, for example, has 3 ties on their record. And the Crimson Tide, obviously one of the greatest dynasties in all of college football, and has been, of course, over the past decade, coming in with a 41-26-3 record, good enough for a 61.6% winning percentage. Now, something to keep in mind as you're looking at these rankings, because Marshall's number 1, that does not mean that the Thundering Herd are better than Alabama, or that they're better than Florida State, or that Alabama is better than Auburn, or Auburn is better than Clemson. Anything that you see there, just because one team is ranked higher than the other in these top 30 bowl rankings does not mean that they are better than that. One thing to keep in mind is obviously the level of competition that some of these teams are facing. A team like Marshall is not going to be facing some of the powerhouse teams that Alabama or Clemson is going to be facing in the likes of a New Year's Six bowl game or the college football playoff. So that is something to keep in mind, that some people may say these rankings are skewed because of that, but in the end, a win is a win, and this is the way it is shaped out. Marshall, even though they've only played in 14 bowl games compared to Alabama's 70, still clinches the number 1 spot based on our requirements of a minimum of 10 bowl games. Rounding out the top 10, you have Boise State at number 6, one of the best group of 5 schools over this past decade. Obviously, Chris Peterson doing a phenomenal job there. And Boise State, 12-6 record in bowl games, so good enough for a 66.7%, winning 2/3 of their bowl game. They don't just play cupcake schools just because they're a group of 5 team. You've seen Boise State show up in some of those New Year's Six and prior BCS bowl games. So the Broncos still putting up some big-time numbers and doing extremely well in the postseason. They come in at number 6. And then you have 3 straight Power 5 schools. We had a couple group of 5 schools there. Marshall, San Jose State, Louisiana Tech, and Boise State. So what was that? 4 teams out of the top 6 being group of 5. 3 straight here. Oklahoma State at 7, 19-10, 65.5% overall. USC, 34-18, obviously a college football blue blood, one of the most historic programs in all of college football. 34-18 there at 65.4%. Ole Miss, 24-13, 64.9%. And then coming in at number 10 to round it all out, another group of 5 school, Miami, Ohio, at 7-4, 63.6%. So just one game above that minimum requirement that we needed there. a very significant drop-off in terms of the percentages between Marshall at 85.7 and then Utah at 77.3. So that's about an 8.4 differential in percentages there, and then a major drop-off from Marshall's 85.7% to Miami, Ohio, 63.6%. So from 1 to 10, you can see a drastic change there. And of course, that comes to the amount of bowl games that a team plays in. Sometimes it comes down to the quality of the opponent they play in, but nonetheless, these are the way the rankings have shaped up. It should be mentioned that there are 2 teams on these top 30s, or in this top 30, that have a very long postseason drought. And the first one is Oregon State, who comes in at number 15. The Beavers have not been to a bowl game since the 2013 Hawaii Bowl, where they defeated Boise State in that game. So a very long drought for a team that ranks right in the middle of the top 30 in all-time bowl winning percentages. They come in at 9-6, so right at 60%. The second team being Rice, coming in at number 19, so just a little below the halfway point there for the Owls. 7-5, 58.3%, have not been to a bowl game since 2014, where they also won the Hawaii Bowl, this time against the likes of Fresno State. So it is kind of interesting to see 2 teams and a handful of these teams that have failed to make a bowl game for a while, or you don't think of perennial bowl teams, yet still making the top 30 out of the 130 college football or FBS teams. So it's kind of interesting to see there. There are 4 teams in the top 10 that we just mentioned that did not make a bowl game last year. Those teams, of course, being San Jose State, as we mentioned, having not been since 2015. A game they probably shouldn't have even gone to. Of course, they had that 5-7 record. Then you have USC, whose last bowl appearance was, of course, the 2017 Cotton Bowl, where they fell to Ohio State. Ole Miss, last bowl game was the 2016 Sugar Bowl, which they did win over Oklahoma State. The past couple of years, of course, because of their scandals that they've been dealing with being on that bowl ban, Ole Miss has not even been able to go, although their record would not have allowed them to go anyways. And then Miami, Ohio has not been sent to a bowl game since the 2016 St. Petersburg Bowl, and that was the first time we had ever seen a college football team start off the season 0-6 and then win their remaining 6 games to finish 6-6. They fell in that game to Mississippi State 17-16. So 4 of the top 10 have not been to a bowl game or did not go to a bowl game last year. 8 teams in these top 30 did not go to a bowl game last year. The other schools, Florida State, as we all know, snapping their bowl streak in a horrible year for Willie Taggart, did not go to a bowl last year. Last one, 2017 Independence Bowl. We mentioned Oregon State, we mentioned Rice, and then the other team being Tennessee, coming in at 28 with a 28-24 record in their program's history, 53.8%, have not been to a bowl game since the 2016 Music City Bowl. So they've missed out on the past 2 years, although I will say that Jeremy Pruitt does seem that he has the Volunteers trending in the right direction. It would not surprise me to see Tennessee get to a bowl game in 2019. All 30 of these teams did finish above 500. That's something to keep of note. We've done rankings here before where you see teams that have been ranked in the top 25 of whatever stats that we're looking at, or maybe even the top 30, that finished below 500. If you remember last year, we did a study on home field advantages to see teams that how they did at home, and a lot of teams were way below 500. Even when we ranked the top 30, there were teams there that finished below 500 over the course of the entire Power 5. But all of these 30 teams did finish above 500. The last team that we have here, the Wisconsin Badgers, finishing 16-14, good for 53.3%. Their last bowl game just being last year in the Pinstripe Bowl, where they annihilated Miami. I believe it was 35-3. So, and if you look at this list here, you can see that a lot of these teams are perennial bowl teams. We mentioned the 8 teams that didn't go to a bowl game last year, which means 22 of these teams did go to a bowl game last year. And year in and year out, Florida State is usually a perennial bowl team. Last year, obviously, was not. But Alabama, Penn State, you've got Clemson, the defending national champions, coming in at 26 with a 24-20 record, 54.5%. And I will mention that these rankings and these records do include national titles. So Alabama's record does include their national titles. Same for Clemson, same for Texas, USC, so forth and so on. National titles are included in these records here. But you can see perennial bowl contenders, perennial national title contenders, Oklahoma in at 21, 29, 22, and 1, 56.7%. But a lot of these teams, year in and year out, do make bowl games, and that's why it's no surprise to see these teams ranked in the top 30 out of all FBS schools when it comes down to their bowl winning percentages. Here at the Gridiron Expert that we put a lot of stock into stats. We like to look at the numbers, we like to break it down and share those stats and numbers with you, and this is just another interesting study that we have here, the top 30 bowl winning percentages over the course of the entire football bowl subdivision. I can't wait to see the more bowl games that continue to come, not just for this next season, but also 2020, 2021, so forth and so on. It's hard to believe that we have over 40 bowl games in the FBS, and that over 80 teams are going to have to participate in these bowl games. It's extremely hard to believe. I don't know if it's a good thing for the sport or not. I love postseason. I love watching the bowl games, but sometimes you look at these teams and you look at the bowls and think we need to cut down on them to make bowls actually worth something again and make it important. I know we have to include those group of 5 schools, the Sun Belt, the MAC, the Conference USA. They need to have opportunities to go to bowl games too, but over 40 games seems a little excessive to me. But it's not going to stop anytime soon, and the way we have to look at it is it's more football for us. So here's your top 30 bowl winning percentages over the course of all of these schools' program histories. It's been a pretty interesting list overall. You can go check out the rest of these records and their winning percentages. If you have any team that was not listed here, comment below and we will certainly give that to you. Make sure you stay tuned here at the Gridiron Expert. We have plenty of more content coming up. We will not have a long break again. We are going to be ranking every single coach from the Power 5 conferences. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. We will have plenty of live streams coming up. You're not going to want to miss any of those. And then we have a major announcement coming out in about 2 weeks, and you're certainly not going to want to miss that either. So as always, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time here on the Gridiron Expert.